In a quiet village, nestled between rolling hills and thick forests, a young woman named Amina found herself in the throes of love. She was vibrant, with a smile that could chase away the darkest clouds, and her laughter often echoed through the village. But love, as she soon discovered, can be a cruel and fleeting thing. Amina fell for a man from the village, a charming but unreliable soul. They shared stolen moments under the stars and whispered dreams of a future together. But when Amina told him she was pregnant, his promises dissolved like morning mist. Without a word, he vanished, leaving Amina alone to bear the weight of her love and its consequences. The betrayal was a heavy burden, and Amina struggled to come to terms with her new reality. Her heart ached and her spirit dimmed. The villagers gossiped, their whispers piercing her like daggers. Depression gripped her tightly, but within her grew a small flickering hope, a life she vowed to cherish despite her pain. Months passed, and on a cool, starlit night, Amina gave birth to a baby boy. She named him Brian, a name she whispered with a bittersweet smile, hoping it would carry strength and resilience. The moment she held him, she felt a love so profound, it drowned out the sorrow that had plagued her. Brian became her reason to wake, her light in the darkness. For 3 years, Amina poured every ounce of her love into raising Brian. She worked tirelessly, sewing clothes for the villagers and tending small gardens to make ends meet. Her laughter returned, now shared with Brian, whose giggles filled their small home with joy. He was a curious child, with wide, searching eyes and a smile that mirrored his mother's. But the shadows of Amina's past never fully left her. The stress and heartbreak she had endured took a toll on her health. One day, she fell ill. What began as fatigue soon grew into something far more serious. The villagers, seeing her struggle, rallied to take her to the nearest hospital. Doctors tried their best, but Amina's body had borne too much pain for too long. Her condition worsened rapidly, and in a quiet room, holding a picture of Brian, Amina took her final breath. The news of Amina's passing spread through the village like wildfire, and hearts broke for the young mother who had endured so much. Her funeral was a somber affair, with villagers gathering to pay their respects. Brian, too young to understand the gravity of loss, clung to a relative's hand, his wide eyes searching the crowd for his mother. After the funeral, the villagers debated Brian's future. Eventually, a kind-hearted aunt and uncle stepped forward, promising to raise him as their own. They took Brian into their home, where he would grow up surrounded by the echoes of his mother's love and the stories of her resilience. After Amina's funeral, Brian was taken in by his aunt and uncle, who had promised to raise him as their own. However, their kindness soon turned to cruelty. They began to misuse Brian, treating him not as a member of their family, but as a servant. From a young age, Brian was forced to dig the land, wash clothes for their children, and perform endless chores, all while being denied adequate food and care. Nights were often spent with an empty stomach, and days were filled with back-breaking labor. Unlike their own children, Brian's relatives refused to send him to school. While the other kids learned to read and write, Brian's dreams of education seemed to slip further away. Yet, he never let bitterness consume him. Instead, he turned to prayer, hoping that God would hear his pleas and offer him solace. Every evening, he knelt by his bed, whispering his hopes for a brighter future. One place offered Brian a semblance of comfort: his mother's grave. Almost every day, He would sit by the simple marker under the large baobab tree, pouring out his heart to her. With tears streaming down his face, he begged her to wake up, to come back and save him from the challenges he faced. The grave became his sanctuary, the only place where he felt truly understood. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the world was bathed in hues of gold and purple, something extraordinary happened. Brian sat by the grave, as he always did, speaking softly to his mother. The air around him grew still, and a warm, gentle breeze caressed his face. Suddenly, he felt a presence. He looked up and saw a glowing figure, radiant and serene. It was his mother. "Brian," she said, her voice as soothing as a lullaby. "My dear son, I see your pain and the hardships you endure. I wish I could hold you and shield you from this world, but my time here has passed. You must be patient, my love. God knows your struggles and has plans for you. You are stronger than you know, and brighter days are ahead. Trust in yourself and in the path that is being prepared for you." Brian reached out to her, tears streaming down his face. "Mama, please don't leave me. I need you," he sobbed. She knelt beside him, placing a hand over his heart. "I am always with you, Brian. Whenever you feel alone, remember that my love surrounds you. Be strong, my son." As she began to fade, Brian cried out, trying to hold on to her image. "Mama, don't go," he pleaded. But within moments, she disappeared, leaving only the soft rustle of leaves in the evening breeze. Brian sat by her grave, his body trembling with sobs. Yet, amidst his tears, a spark of hope ignited within him. His mother's words gave him the strength to persevere, even in the face of overwhelming challenges. He vowed to honor her memory by enduring, trusting that one day his struggles would lead to something greater. It was a day of celebration for the village. Christmas had arrived. Bright decorations adorned homes, and laughter echoed in the streets. Brian's relatives were no exception, dressing their children in new, colorful clothes for the occasion. But as the other children beamed with joy, Brian was left empty-handed. His aunt had bought nothing for him, leaving him in his worn-out, tattered clothes. Brian watched as his cousins pranced around in their finery, their laughter ringing out as they showed off their new outfits. He felt a sharp pang in his chest when he saw his friends from the village, also dressed in festive attire. Their smiles only deepened his sense of loneliness. Unable to contain his emotions, Brian retreated to a quiet corner behind the house, hiding his tears from prying eyes. As he cried, his sobs muffled by the stillness of the evening, a strange chill filled the air. Suddenly, he noticed a faint glowing figure, a white, human-like ghost standing nearby. Brian froze, his tears momentarily forgotten, as the apparition seemed to radiate both calm and mystery. From within the house, a voice, soft yet commanding, called out to him. "Brian," the voice said, steady and gentle. "Keep quiet and go to where your mother's grave is." Without hesitation, Brian wiped his tears and bolted from his hiding spot. His heart raced as he ran through the quiet village, past the festive lights and sounds, heading straight to the baobab tree. The night sky shimmered with stars, and the path seemed almost illuminated, as if guiding him. Finally, he reached his mother's grave and sat down on top of the cool earth. Waiting with bated breath, Brian whispered softly, "Mama, I'm here. Please come to me. I need you." His voice trembled, his body tense with anticipation. He sat in the quiet night, under the watchful gaze of the stars, waiting for his mother to appear once more, as she had before. Within moments, the stillness of the night was shattered by the sound of roaring winds. Leaves swirled in the air as a radiant light illuminated the grave. Out of the light emerged Amina, dressed in a beautiful red Christmas outfit that shimmered like the morning sun. In her hands, she held wrapped boxes tied with golden ribbons. Her face was serene, her presence exuding love and warmth. Brian's heart leapt as he stood up from where he had been sitting. "Mama!" he cried, running toward her and throwing his arms around her. Tears streamed down his face as he clung to her, overwhelmed by a mix of relief and joy. Amina held him close, stroking his hair gently. "My dear son, don't cry. Today is a day of joy, and I have brought you something special," she said, her voice filled with love. She knelt down and handed Brian one of the beautifully wrapped boxes. With trembling hands, he opened it to find a stunning set of new Christmas clothes inside. The fabric was soft and vibrant, unlike anything he had ever owned. Amina helped him put on the outfit, adjusting it carefully as she smiled with pride. "You look so handsome, my son," she said, kissing his forehead. Brian's tears of sadness turned to tears of gratitude as he hugged his mother again. "Thank you, Mama. I've missed you so much." Amina smiled, holding his face in her hands. "I have missed you too, Brian. But remember, I am always watching over you. Today, I want you to know that you are special, and no matter what challenges come your way, you will overcome them. Have faith and stay strong." They sat together by the grave for what felt like hours, talking and sharing a bond that transcended the boundaries of life and death. Amina guided him with words of wisdom, instilling hope and courage in his heart. Finally, as the first light of dawn began to break, Amina stood up. "I must go now, my son, but remember what I've told you. You are never alone." Brian nodded, his eyes glistening with tears. "I love you, Mama. And I love you, Brian, always." With that, she began to fade, her figure dissolving into the morning light. Brian watched as she disappeared, leaving behind a sense of peace and warmth that filled his heart. He stood by the grave for a moment longer, clutching the gifts she had given him. Then, with renewed strength and determination, he turned and walked back toward the village, carrying his mother's love and guidance with him as he faced the challenges ahead.